I'm going to talk about game development tools. So that doesn't just include game engines, but also tools useful for other people who aren't programmers. Well, we'll let the talk speak for itself, I guess, somehow. All right, I'm Seamus, the president of GDS. I'm also a fourth-year computing student. I don't even do games, but I like games in my spare time. Now that I don't have any, it's a little bit difficult, but we'll struggle through it somehow. All right, so who are the game developer tools used for? I think there's a huge misconception when you are just starting out in games development that if you have a programmer on your team, they're the only person that touches the engine, or they're the only person that touches the tools. If you're an artist, you just go away and you make stuff, and you give it to someone else, or if you're a sound guy, you go away and make stuff and you give it to someone else, right? And it's a programmer who sits there and has to interface with or deal with actually having to make the game. I want to destroy that misconception. If you're an artist, if you're a sound guy, if you're a producer, you will be working in engine if you work at a game studio. You will be working with the software. There are other roles, things like a technical artist, who do kind of deal with importing the assets into Unity or into Unreal or into a custom-built game engine. They aren't. The programmers usually in industry, unless you're a gameplay programmer, don't actually do a lot of everything else that people have commonly, the common tropes of dealing with game engines. So, kind of what do you got to think about when you're choosing your game engine or your game development tool? You got to think about, what platform are you developing for? If you're developing for Android or for Linux or for Windows, you're going to be using a different piece of software unless you're using Unity, Unreal, which do have multi-platform development tools. So you have to think about that when you start building, because if you're going to make a game and you're going to go down the route, you've got to choose software that is applicable for the platform that you're developing for. Because at the end of the day, the game engine that you choose is just a tool. It's just a means to make a game. You've got to choose the one that's the most convenient. How? You have to also take into consideration that people on your team may be using different hardware. If you have people on your team who are using a Mac, you have people on your team who use Linux or Windows, you have to make sure that the software that you use is compatible with all these different devices. This is especially important as well, even when you're using game engines like Unity or Unreal, because the files that are generated by these two engines are different depending on what software you use or what system you use. So if you have someone developing on Linux and they upload to your GitHub repository, and you have someone developing on Windows and they upload to your GitHub repository, you could end up with a mishmash of horrible metadata that just breaks your repository, which is just terrible to deal with because from experience, it can be quite annoying. All right. If you don't have an artist on your team or you don't have a sound guy on your team, do not despair. There is so much free game art out there in the wild. From Kenny Art Assets, Kenny, amazing guy. You can get free assets from him, or you can get his packs, which cost nothing, they're like $5 or like £3 to get access to all of his. This is Kenny Game Art. It's amazing stuff he does. Mainly 2D, some 3D models. Open Game Art as well is open source game art that you can go and you can get. And this is anything from 2D sprites that look like Zelda to 3D game arts. As well as the Unity Asset Store, there's an equivalent for Unreal as well. You can get anything. So do not despair if you do not have an artist on your team that cannot make pre-built assets for you. You can find it. As well as freesound.org, there's plenty of places on the web to find sound that falls under Creative Commons that you guys can use and even use in games that you end up selling. So do not despair if you do not have these people on your team. You can find it very easily. One Google search away. Okay, so game development tools. I think why I didn't call this talk game engines is because there's so many tools that can be used in game creation that aren't just Unity, right? So a lot of people make the misconception when they come in, they've got to choose between Unity, Unreal, these big names. No. There's things like Twine, which can be used for creating branching story narratives. These are great for creating stories where you have branching narratives. This is basically just a simple user interface to allow you to make paths and narratives and stories. There's this thing called Magic Voxel. This is a little open source application for making voxel art that looks like this. It's great. It's really easy to use. We had one of our members of GDS last year participate in the Murray Game Jam and come in the top 3. Well, his entire game was made using Magic Voxel. It's great stuff. And Tile 2D, which is a level generator
2D level generator for making sprites. So you basically can import a sprite pack. You can then, place stuff in a level. Those will give you a sprite atlas and an XML level file that you can then import into Unity, import into Unreal, use in your custom-built game engine to display 2D level files. And these are all game development tools, and there's plenty more out there. You don't just have to limit yourself to Unity or Unreal, like I will show. Okay, so you have to make the distinction between game engines that have editors and game engines that don't. There are plenty of game engines out there, if you're a programmer, like libgdx or SML with Box2D, who will offer a complete package for developing a game that's purely in code. No editor, no ID, or no custom-built editor for it at all. So things like Unity and Unreal do have game editors. And these are great because everyone can use them, like I said. If you're a sound guy, if you're an artist, if you're a producer, you can get in there and you can help make the game without needing the programmer. And I think this is really key because oftentimes when you start out, the programmers has to do everything, from making prefabs in Unity to importing the sound to making sure the sprites are the correct scale and stuff like this. And this, it isn't programming. And oftentimes, I personally do not find this aspect of game development very, very interesting at all. I just want to code. I just want to deal with the code. And so it's really great if you are a sound guy or you are a visual artist and you can interface with Unity. You aren't afraid to get in there and Unreal and make sure that the models that you're creating in Maya or in Blender are importing and working correctly in Engine. That's a great skill to have if you're participating in game jams or if you're going to go on into industry. Sometimes they'll even expect you to know how to handle files and 3D file or 3D models you can create, meshes and sprites, and how to handle that in Engine. So it's great to start now and not worry about that. Another bonus of using these big name engines like Unity and Unreal is they have heaps of multi-platform support. So you can develop a game that works on Windows, mobile, Android, iOS, and it works all the same. It's just a click of a button away, on web. So let's start off. So Unity, it's probably the most prolific and common name up there with Unreal. It's very easy to use. You've never used it before. It's like one of the easiest game engines to use out there, with the added benefit of being able to be very complex later on. So you don't sacrifice usability. You don't sacrifice complexity for usability, which is great if you're a more advanced user and you want to do things like shader manipulation or procedural level generation. Unity can handle all that. It's not just for programmers, like I said. If you're an animator, Unity has a comprehensive animation suite. If you're a sound guy, Unity has that comprehensive sound editing, and it's great. You can get in there and you can use it. This is the same for Unreal as well. So it uses a language called C#. There's tons of tutorials and supports out there on YouTube. There's their own Unity Academy thing that they have now, which offers help for using Unity. Unfortunately, it is closed source. The only way you can get access to the Unity engine is if you pay for it, the source code at least. And this is what it looks like. It's kind of hard to see, but this is a general gist of what the editor layout looks. Yeah, there's Unity there. Unreal. So Unreal is another game engine, and it also comes with an editor, and it kind of supports these things called blueprints, which are kind of like an intermediary scripting language. So if you are comfortable scripting, but you may not be a programmer, there's that. There's lots of tutorial support as well, multi-platform building. There's millions of tutorials on YouTube just a click away. It supports C++, if you're more of a C++ programmer kind of guy. Unreal is a thing for you. Once again, it supports multiple platforms, and additionally, it is open source. So you can go on GitHub, and you can get the entire source code for Unity, or Unreal Engine 4 if you want to. It looks like this. This is blueprints. It's basically like Scratch, if you guys are familiar with that. It's kind of drag and drop. You can kind of edit a lot of stuff. I think it's actually material editor. It's not actually. It basically looks like this. And you can basically make an entire game without having to touch a single line of C++ code if you are a man. Godot. So this is another engine that people basically have never heard of before, but I want to do a little personal plug in here. It is great. So Godot is kind of the same vein as Unreal. It has an intermediary scripting language called Godot script. Similar vein if you guys use GameMaker. They have GameMaker script. It's kind of like an additional language that sits on top of having to deal with C++ or C#, just so you can do kind of quick fixes here, add quick scripts there. Additionally, on top of that, you can just program straight up in C++ if you want to. It's much less well known than Unity Unreal, unfortunately, which means support is not quite there. So the benefit of using Unreal and Unity is basically if you want to do something, someone has done it before, no matter what you want to do. And it's basically just one Google away. And if you guys are familiar with software development, things like, why is I blanking on the name now? Software development is rife with things just a Google away, and you can find that information and copy it if you so wish. This is what Go looks like. So it has kind of like a level editor, same kind of general idea as the rest of them. Okay, GameMaker 2. There is GameMaker 1. It's made by Yo-Yo Games, which is local to Dundee. They have their offices in Dundee. It's not just for programmers as well. This is basically like, if you don't want to program, you can make GameMaker. And GameMaker kind of supports 3D, but very limited 3D functionality. So it's mainly kind of 2D, 2D isometric. It's GameMaker language is the scripting language that it's used in. There are some really cool games that have been made in GameMaker, so don't feel like this is the cop-out. If you guys just want to make a game, and this is very much just about, like Phil said, that iterative, quick process, 8 weeks to make a game, this is a solid bet, because it is extremely easy to use, and people can debug it and program it, even if you aren't programmers, if you are familiar with some light scripting languages. This is what a GameMaker 2 looks like. It's very much just kind of like ticking boxes and writing small scripts here and there to manipulate games, and you can very much make a fully fledged game in GameMaker, so don't feel like it's just for that. Okay, this is the complex stuff that I left last. So if you guys want to like make your own game engine, I would not recommend it as a means to have a working and final game for GDS, because it is a quite grand undertaking. But if you do have a burning desire to really get close to the metal as possible, understand how you can go from Unreal to writing code that runs on your GPU, this is where you would start. So at the top of it, you have Phaser, which is a full JavaScript game development library. If you are so determined to make a game in JavaScript, I'm highly not recommending that, but that's kind of a game that will run in your browser. SML is a C++ programming language that kind of can run as a software renderer, which means you don't use your GPU, or you can use OpenGL or DirectX with SML to really, and this is where the talk gets quite technical, is why I left it towards the end. If you are a programmer, you can kind of use OpenGL and DirectX with SML if you want to create render context. Additionally, there are things like Ops2D, which is a C++ physics library that you can use to do collision, kind of physics, general physics. It's very good. It's industry standard. So libgdx as well is a Java development language for making Java games. These are also great for doing with Android Studio, for making games on mobile. If you're making a mobile, a native Android game, you could use libgdx. That does have support for mobile development. Additionally, it also has support for desktop, so iOS and Windows. Pygame. So Pygame is a library for Python programming language, which is kind of like, was the first language that I learned, and the first game library that I ever touched. It only really has capabilities to do software rendering, so it's going to be very, very slow, no matter what you do. It's really just for making like Snake. It's for making like really simple games. But it's a great leaping off point if you just kind of want to get in there. And it has very comprehensive documentation and stuff, and I have done horrible, horrible things in the Pygame library to make it also work the way you want it to. FreeGlide. So this is OpenGL utility toolkit. You'll need this if you're doing OpenGL programming. It also runs with GLFW, GLE, lots of GL stuff. This is kind of OpenGL libraries that you're going to be doing if you're just writing like pure OpenGL code. This is what you have to deal with if you're making your own game engine, which is OpenGL or DirectX. Would not recommend it unless you are extremely dedicated to long nights of just pain, pure pain, especially if you're starting off. It's great if you've been doing programming or development for a while and you really want to get in there and figure out, how games actually work, because let me tell you, it's about 60% black magic, and I've been programming for a while. SDL and SDL2, these are kind of, again, comprehensive game library-ish for, again, creating render context for OpenGL. All right, so this is like, don't do this, but if you want to, you can do this. You will be also using some of these libraries if you are CGT students. You will be doing some OpenGL stuff in third year and second year, I think.
CGAT as well.
Yeah, CGAT as well. You will be learning OpenGL. So if you guys want to get started early for whatever reason, I know some of you guys have, this is what you would choose. But otherwise, if you're just kind of a hobby, game development is where you want to start out. I'd highly recommend going with Unity or Unreal or GameMaker, one of those game engines with libraries, so that everyone on your team can get in. Because if you are going to make a game and you are going to use a game library, you must be conscious of the fact that as a programmer, you will be doing everything. The sound guys will not be able to help you, the art guys will not be able to help you, the producers probably won't be able to help you unless they also know how to program, because you will be writing a lot of code. And Unity and Unreal don't really suffer from the same problem. You'll be writing some code, but a lot of it will be in editor, rather than writing just lots of code. So yeah, be cautious of that fact if you want to create your own game engine. There are people here who can help you if you want to do that. Myself included, I can talk to some other people who also have gone down that route before in the past, so have attempted to make my own game engine, and let me just tell you from experience, it's a lot of code, okay? You think it's going to be a little bit, but it's not. It's not. Yeah, so that's, any questions? Game engines, game development tools. Yeah, any questions before we move on to Matthew? No? Have I scared you sufficiently? We have one question?
You know the little slide about the little block city active? What
Yeah.
program was that?
That's a program called Magic Voxel.
Magic Box.
Yeah, just Google that. It should link you directly to a GitHub repository where you can download it or branch it if you want to. It's just an open source little voxel creation tool. And yeah, so this is what I stress you enough is do your research beforehand. Do not blindly commit to making a game engine, because if you choose the wrong thing, you will be massively dissuaded. But yeah, that's me. Thank you guys.